Hello and welcome to Hamer Reviews. My name is Christopher Hamer and today we're reviewing the SB-800 in 2020. This flash is almost an adult at 17 years old, so I thought it'd be interesting to take a look back and see if it still holds up in today's modern environment with the newer DSLR and mirrorless cameras that Nikon produces, and also just to give you a shorter overview because I know I covered a lot of this in the Nikon flashgun guide that I made a while back. However, there's a lot of information in that you may not be looking for, so this is just for those people that are looking at the SB-800. Now, the SB-800 was released in 2003 and is a pro-grade flash. What that means is it has all the features of Nikon's pro cameras. It's also compatible with Nikon's creative lighting system. What that means, in short, is that it has a remote and master mode and it can fire other flashes wirelessly or indeed control them wirelessly, as well as fire remotely itself as well. That means if you have a camera such as the D300 or indeed most of the newer Nikon cameras that have the built-in flash, this is enough to actually control the SB-800 when you're using it remotely. The SB-800 has a lot of features. It has a diffuser dome that is included, though if you're buying one of these used, you might not get one, so definitely look to pick one of them up if you don't. This is model number SW10H. It also has a zoom range of 24mm all the way through to 105mm. The actual flash head is fully flexible, so you can go from bouncing literally straight up to straight across to your subject. It also has, this is straight, and then it also has a little macro mode, which you can use by pushing in the side button and aiming it downwards. Unfortunately, this particular model that I bought used has the gears broken off, so it will basically just adjust as you want it to rather than pressing the button on the side. However, that's not really a detriment to using it. It will also swivel 45 degrees to the right and 180 degrees to the back. You might ask yourself why, however, there is logic. Just to explain, if I mount this flash from its stand, which is also included, onto my D300 that I have here, you could probably hear as I attached that there was a sound from the flash head. What that was doing is adjusting the focal length from 105mm that I just set it to 50mm, because it knows there's a 50mm lens attached to this camera, and as such it needs to set itself to 50mm. But as I was saying, the reason why this head can swivel around is if you're shooting downwards but you want to bounce your light off the ceiling. I now have it pointed almost, it must be about 35 degrees backwards, but that's still straight up. I aim and focus and take my photo, and the flash has bounced off the ceiling and given me a nice diffused light. Of course, I could also use the diffuser dome, however, bouncing off the ceiling is still usually the best choice. Again, another thing that's worth pointing out, as I attach this diffuser dome, you again hear the zoom move. This is now moved out into the 24mm position, and with the dome, it gives you a range of 14mm. So if you had a 14mm lens attached, this would be the way to get a full range with the flash. It has various different modes. It is compatible with Nikon's i-TTL, which is its latest way of measuring the sort of light output from the flash to the exposure on the camera. It gives you a very short pre-flash, which the camera uses to meter, and then it sets itself based on that. It is essentially fully automatic and is very, very useful. It also has various other modes such as full manual as well as repetition, so you can set a certain amount of flashes during a certain set time period. So for instance, if you have the camera set to take photos of an object that's moving, for instance, you might want to set this to flash 6 times every second or so, and using an intervalometer you can then match the flashes to the actual camera taking the photo. Very handy. Another way you can also do that is to have the repetition mode and, for instance, have an object move, take a long exposure in a dark room, for instance, and as the object moves and this flashes, say 6 times in a second, you sort of get the object moving across the frame on a single picture. Very handy and useful if you want to be creative. But how does this flash hold up in 2020? Well, the good news is it's compatible with all of Nikon's mirrorless cameras, all of their DSLRs, and will work perfectly. It can also be used remotely, as I mentioned, by Nikon's DSLR cameras that have the built-in flash, which is great. It can also control other flashes that have remote mode with its master mode. The unfortunate thing is that the menu system could be a little easier to use. It's so complex to use that Nikon felt it necessary to put a little cheat sheet on the back of the diffuser card. Basically what it's telling you is how to reset the flash, which is holding mode and the on-off button, and it's also telling you how to get into the custom settings, which is done by holding select in the center for about 2 seconds, and then you hit the custom settings menu. Unfortunately, it's still very complex. You have the ISO setting if you're using this in manual mode, then you have the options for master mode and remote mode. Try and do this without too much reflection. Then you have whether it will make a sound or not, and that is used when it's in remote mode, and it will give you a loud audible tone when it's ready after fully recycling. And then it will also give you options around the LCD brightness and contrast and a few other bits like that. It takes some getting used to. I used this flash for a number of years and it can be a little bit annoying. However, the fact is that you can use it in fully auto mode and never go into those settings and never need to worry about them. It also has a dedicated button for modeling mode. Now, on a lot of cameras, more modern ones, this is also achieved by pressing the aperture preview, and that gives you a flash of light from the flash so you can work out where your shadows are going to be. It's actually very handy and very useful. It comes with this handy little stand, which is great. Also has a tripod mounted on the back, so if you're mounted on a tripod, you can actually use this stand to do so. It comes with a diffuser dome, and it also, if I remember correctly, comes with some gels, so you can match incandescent and fluorescent light should you wish to do so. Very useful for corporate or event photographers. Basically then, what I'm telling you is that this flash works perfectly with all Nikon's newer cameras. It will work perfectly with Nikon's older cameras, and in fact can also work with sort of the D1s, which were a bit older and didn't have i-TTL technology. And it's compatible with everything. It even has a removable battery door, which is important because you can get the SB-800 accessory, which will go over as a separate battery door and provide you a 5th battery, which reduces recycling times even further. On the front of this flash, you also have the connector for a separate outside battery pack, so you could choose a third-party pack or a Nikon SD-8A, which allows you to add a further 6 batteries to the 4 or 5 you might already have in here. And it also has the flash sync ports on the side. Essentially, this is a fully featured flash, and if you can pick one up on eBay for between £50 and £70, I'd say that it's a flash that's probably going to stand you up for a fairly decent amount of time. It should work in most weather conditions. I wouldn't necessarily get it too wet because they're not terribly well weather sealed. However, it's definitely made for professional use and should stand up to hobbyist use even after a relatively hard professional life. So that's what I think of the Nikon SB-800 in 2020. I purchased this on eBay for about £60. So practicing what I preach. I also bought one new back in the day in 2006 or 7. So gives you an idea of how long this has been around. It's a great little flash unit, and if you're considering buying one used now, I can tell you that it's definitely a good buy. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions about the Nikon SB-800, please pop them in the comments below. Equally, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe. It really does help. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.